to be held to account under the law. We do not have 40 years to continue suffering the consequences of the fraud allegedly being committed by the fossil fuel companies where climate change is concerned. In brief, there are only 3 questions left to be answered about the climate crisis. The first one is, must we change? Do we really have to change? We rely on fossil fuels for more than 80% of all the energy our world uses. In burning it, we've reduced poverty and raised standards of living and built this elaborate global civilization, and it looks like it'll be hard to change. So naturally, people wonder, do we really have to change? The scientific community has been all but unanimous for a long time now, but now Mother Nature and the laws of physics, harder to ignore than scientists, are making it abundantly clear that we have to change. We're putting 110 million tons of man-made heat-trapping global warming pollution into the thin shell of atmosphere surrounding our planet every day, as if it's an open sewer. And the cumulative amount of that man-made global warming pollution now traps as much extra heat energy in the Earth's system as would be released by 400,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every 24 hours on the surface of our planet. It's a big planet, but that's a lot of energy. And it is the reason why temperatures are breaking records almost every year now. 2015 was the hottest year measured since instruments have been used to measure temperature. 2014 was the second hottest. 14 of the 15 hottest have been in the last 15 years. As the Attorney General mentioned, February continues the trend by breaking all previous records, the hottest in 1,632 months ever measured. Last December 29th, the same unnatural global warming fuel storm system that created record floods in the Midwest went on up to the Arctic, and December 29th, smack in the middle of the polar winter night at the North Pole, temperatures were driven up 50 degrees above the freezing point. So the North Pole started thawing in the middle of the winter night. Yesterday, the announcement came that it's the smallest winter extent of ice ever measured in the Arctic. 93% of the extra heat goes into the oceans of the world, and that has consequences. When Superstorm Sandy headed across the Atlantic toward this city, it crossed areas of the Atlantic that were 9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than normal, and that's what made that storm so devastating. Sea level had already come up because of the ice melting, principally off Greenland and Antarctica. And as the Attorney General mentioned, that's a process now accelerating. But these ocean-based storms are breaking records now. I just came from the Philippines, where Super Typhoon Haiyan created 4 million homeless people when it crossed much warmer waters of the Pacific. By the way, it was a long plane flight to get here, and I happened to get, just before we took off, the 200-page brief that you all filed in support of the Clean Power Plan. Really excellent work. Footnotes took up a lot of those 200 pages, so I'm not claiming to read all 200 of them. But the same extra heat in the oceans is disrupting the water cycle. We all learned in school that the water vapor comes off the oceans and falls as rain or snow over the land and then rushes back to the ocean. That natural life-giving process is being massively disrupted because the warmer oceans put a lot more water vapor up there. And when storm conditions present themselves, these storms will reach out thousands of kilometers to funnel all that extra humidity and water vapor into these massive record-breaking downpours. And occasionally it creates a snowpocalypse or a snowmageddon, but most often record-breaking floods. We've had 7 once-in-a-thousand-year floods in the last 10 years in the U.S. Just last week in Louisiana and Arkansas, 2 feet of rain in 4 days. coming again with what they call the Maya Express off the oceans. And the same extra heat that's creating these record-breaking floods also pull the soil moisture out of the land and create these longer and deeper droughts all around the world, on every continent. Every night on the news now, it's like a nature hike through the book of Revelation. And we're seeing tropical diseases moving to higher latitudes. The Zika virus. Of course, the transportation revolution has a lot to do with the spread of Zika and dengue fever and chikungunya and diseases I never heard of when I was growing up, and probably most of you never did either. But now they're moving and taking root in the United States. Puerto Rico's part of the United States, by the way. Not a state, but part of our nation. 50% of the people in Puerto Rico are estimated to get the Zika virus this year. By next year, 80%. When people who are part of the U.S. territory, when women are advised not to get pregnant, that's something new that ought to capture our attention. And in large areas of Central America and South America, women are advised now not to get pregnant for 2 years until they try to get this brand new viral disease under control. The list of the consequences continues, and I'm not going to go through it all, but the answer to that first question, do we have to change, is clearly now to any reasonable thinking person, yes, we have to change. Now the second question is, can we change? And for quite a few years, I will confess to you that when I answered that question, yes, it was based on the projections of scientists and technologists who said, just wait. We're seeing these exponential curves just begin. Solar's going to win. Wind power is going to get way cheaper. Batteries are going to have their day. We're going to see much better efficiency. Well, now we're seeing these exponential curves really shoot up dramatically. Almost 75% of all the new investment in the U.S. in new generating capacity last year was in solar and wind. More than half worldwide. We're seeing coal companies go bankrupt on a regular basis now. Australia is the biggest coal exporter in the world. They've just the analysis there, they're not going to build any more coal plants because solar and wind are so cheap. And we're seeing this happen all around the world. But there is an effort in the U.S. to slow this down and to bring it to a halt, because part of the group that, again, according to the best available evidence, has been committing fraud in trying to convince people that the climate crisis is not real, are now trying to convince people that renewable energy is not a viable option, and worse than that, they're using their combined political and lobbying efforts to put taxes on solar panels and jigger with the laws to require that installers have to know the serial number of every single part that they're using to put on a rooftop of somebody's house, and a whole series of other phony requirements, unneeded requirements that are simply for the purpose of trying to slow down this renewable revolution. In the opinion of many who have looked at this pattern of misbehavior and what certainly looks like fraud, they are violating the law. If the Congress would actually work, our democracy's been hacked, and that's another story, not the subject of this press conference, but if the Congress really would allow the executive branch of the federal government to work, then maybe this would be taken care of at the federal level. But these brave men and women, who are the attorneys general of the states represented in this historic coalition, are doing their job. And just as many of them did in the tobacco example, they are now giving us real hope that the answer to that third question, will we change, is going to be yes. Because those who are using unfair and illegal means to try to prevent the change